Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
The studies affirm common sense. Pornography leads to sexual assault among children. I'm Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action, and joining me in studio today, a very special guest, Dr. Judith Riesman, visiting professor of law with Liberty University School of Law. Thanks for coming in, Judith.
Delighted to be here, Matt.
Well, tomorrow we're going to talk about your recent travels abroad, your latest trip to Croatia. We'll get into that tomorrow. Amazing stories you have from there. But first, today, I want to talk about this study out of Great Britain with the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. It's reporting that from 2009 to 2012, over 5,000 sexual assaults in England involved a child perpetrator raping or sexually assaulting another child. Of the cases reported, over 98% of the perps were boys, 20% of the victims were a family member, and 1/3 of the victims were a family friend. And the common denominator with all of those is that the perpetrators of these horrific acts were very involved in pornography. This is just one study. Don't the preponderance of the studies prove what we've said all along?
The preponderance of studies have always proven what we said all along, ever since 1972, when I went back to university, Case Western Reserve University, and I started looking up the research on television effects. In 1972, the Surgeon General's report on television violence, clear, golly, big news. What monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. What children see, they imitate, they practice. You send them to school to learn math, and you say, go do your homework. They do their homework. They do well in math. And so the same thing is now happening, of course, and has been happening. Mass media will be imitated by children. If it's good stuff, they'll tend to imitate good stuff. And if it's crime and horrible, that's what they'll imitate.
We know this from our common experience, don't we? I think of my son, who's 11 years old. As you know, Judith, I was a former professional boxer. Yeah. I'm a jazz drummer. Guess what? Two of the things that my son really enjoys doing, with no pressure from me whatsoever, he just independently took a great interest in what? Boxing and drumming. He loves doing those because he's modeling what he sees. Children model what they see. You have done studies and in your speaking engagements around the country, you point out that, and I'll just paraphrase, that the neural pathways, that pornography literally changes the brains of children. Get into that a little bit.
Well, but again, it's all perfect common sense. Everybody out there listening or watching this at all knows that. I mean, what we learn alters the physical structure of our brains. It alters the neurochemistry of our brains. So if we are learning biblical material and you're growing up in a very restrained environment, and this is how your whole world is going, your brain will reflect that. That's why this whole idiocy, of saying, that people are born a certain way. No, they're not. They have certain wiring, basic wiring, originally when they're newborn babies. That wiring then will alter depending upon the environment that they face, and it will be shaped by that environment.
Quick subject change here. I want to segue off of what you just said. You and I have spoken before, and the homosexual lobby, you're talking about people who claim to be born a certain way, has taken some comments that you have said, kind of tying the two together, childhood sexual assault, pedophilia, and so forth with homosexuality. They have indicated that you have somehow said that all homosexuals are pedophiles. Did you say that? Is that true?
Yes. Way back at some point we were talking on this program, I think, about GLSEN, the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, undecided, questioning. Well, of course, it got longer since we were talking.
Yeah. I call it an alphabet soup of nonsense.
Yeah, we were talking about this group, which is a group that has funneled itself into the schools to try and recruit children into sexual activity, which is what that's all about. And they have scholarships they give, and they have conferences, and they bring the children into the conferences and pay for everything and so on. And we were discussing that. And within that context, I said that those males and females involved in that activity, GLSEN, that they were actually looking for sexual activity for the most part with children, and that tends to be correct. I misstated if it was pulled in a sense out of context. I'm not talking about the entire homosexual world, of course not, except that I keep hoping for a mass demonstration by the homosexual movement against child sexual abuse within their own community and others. And I haven't seen that. So I want to make that very, very clear. No, that was a out of context statement. And yes, I was talking about GLSEN. And I think at that point I said something about pedophilia being the definition of sex with boys, which it's not really. The Greek is the definition of sex with kids, but pederasty refers very specifically to males with boys.
Well, okay, I'm glad you clarified that, but kind of tying that into what we're talking about here today, GLSEN and other organizations, they are intentionally indoctrinating children, exposing them to graphic depictions of sex and sexuality, particularly aberrant sexual behaviors, homosexuality, and so forth. And aren't they, in effect, grooming them with the same kind of materials and the same kind of tactics, whether they intend to do it or not? They are grooming them for sexual activity because, as we've pointed out here, monkey see, monkey do, children emulate and imitate that which they are presented, especially by adults to whom they look up to. They are going to mimic the behaviors that to them are described and portrayed as normal and good and natural. And so to that degree, they are grooming children for pedophiles, for sexual assault.
Absolutely, surely. And that is not a problem in terms of being able to define and to explain. Yeah, the FBI has identified the whole issue of grooming. If we needed the FBI to identify it, you show children pictures of sexual activity. You tell them that that activity is fine, wonderful, have a good time.
Everyone else is doing
it. You give them the Kinsey false data of now 10% to 37% of you are really gay anyway. You're born that way, that sort of thing. And that's major recruitment. Of course it is. As we know, and as anybody out there knows, you do not show sexy pictures to children. We had understood that for years. Well, historically, we understood that you maintain a certain protection for children from these activities. They're much too stimulating for children. But as we legalized, whatever you legalize in the situation in the nation will be then part of what's going to happen in the schools. So when we started legalizing sodomy, then immediately sodomy would be taught in the schoolroom by those who wanted children to engage in sodomy. So yes, you're completely correct in that regard.
Judith, as groups like GLSEN, like the pedophile group Before You Act, they're all kind of under the same sexual anarchy umbrella, as I call it. They are attacking the Judeo-Christian norm as in terms of human sexuality. How can parents fight back against this kind of indoctrination that's occurring throughout our schools and certainly throughout our larger culture?
Well, as I've said, it's very important, obviously. If the parents don't protect their children, nobody really will. And Liberty Counsel is very involved in that. Legal cases now are being brought. The public has to support those cases brought by Liberty Counsel. They have to read, they have to become knowledgeable. And when they go into the classroom to complain about the materials that their children are being forced, that's being forced upon their children, they have to know that the principal is going to say, you're the first person that's ever come and complained about that. And they're not. And if they do not set up barriers and take action, then I've called it, we're cannibalizing, allowing the cannibalization of our own children. How we can justify our inaction in that regard is something that I have not been able to understand myself.
Well, Judith, thanks for coming in today. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow about your trip to Croatia, and we will have a great deal of fun doing that. Folks, At Liberty Counsel, we are standing in defense of children as the sexual anarchy movement pushes and works to sexualize our young children. We are having none of it. We are standing against them. You know, Scripture talks about thinking upon things that are good and true and wholesome and pure. Well, the converse is true. If you're thinking upon things that are aberrant and sexually charged and so forth, then ultimately you are what you think about, and you are what you talk about. Go to lc.org to find out how you can become part of Liberty Counsel's ministry, or give us a call at 1-800-671-1776. Stand with us as we stand in defense of children.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.